everyone, I'm Bianca
and I'm Rosina
and welcome back to
Twins in Stitches.
Today's tutorial is going to be a beginner's crochet one. Today I'll be showing how to make this really cute granny square drawstring pouch. So you can pull these and it draws together. This is made of 2 granny squares and I sewed some flowers that I made onto the front and back. And I also added some beads onto the end of a chain to really jazz it up a little bit. And this is perfect for gift giving, for storage, for anything you can think to put in here. And this tutorial is for absolute beginners. So let's get started. First, we must discuss what equipment you will need. So you will need 2 different colours of yarn. So you can have 2 balls here. I've gone for a nice creamy white colour and a nice orange. And then we will need a crochet hook. So this is a 4mm hook. And you must make sure that the size of your hook corresponds to the yarn you're using. You can figure this out by looking at the label of your yarn. Here we can see that this says 4 to 5mm here for hook size. So a 4, a 4.5 or a 5mm hook will work just fine. I will also be using some beads just to finish off the work to put on the end of the drawstring. So the string that will draw the bag together, I'll be putting some beads. You will also need a tapestry needle. This is a needle which is like a sewing needle but just has a bigger eye, so we can see that there's a much bigger eye than a sewing needle. We'll need this to weave in ends and sew things together. And then we will also need some scissors. These are yarn snippers but regular scissors work just fine. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we'll be doing is making one of these squares. I've already made one and now I'll be showing you how to make another one. So we get our yarn that we want to do our square in. It doesn't have to be white, of course, whatever colour you fancy. And we are going to start by making a slip knot. Now, I have a whole video on how to crochet for beginners, so do check that out if you are a beginner, but I will be going at a beginner pace anyways, so you should be able to follow up no matter what. No worries, I'll be going nice and slow and explaining it very well. So, we have to make a slip knot. So what we do is we place the yarn over our fingers, right? So, we have our yarn, place it over all our fingers, we open up these 2 fingers, we wrap the yarn around the top 2 fingers and then we secure it with this bottom finger. So we've got yarn coming in this way, around and back. Now, flip over your fingers. We part our fingers slightly. We reach in with our thumb and index finger of our other hand and grab this yarn and pull it up a little bit. So we've got this triangular formation almost. And then what we do is we go in again, pull this up, and we have our knot. So what we do is we just continue to pull and tighten this so that we're able to put this on our hook. Now, our slip knot is our first stitch, and this must be the size of our hook. So all you do is you tighten by pulling one of the yarns. And here we go. A bit more tight actually. And that is our slip knot, our first stitch. So now that we have our slip knot, we will figure out and discuss how to actually hold your hook, which is very important. You hold your hook with the dominant hand, right? So you hold the grip with your thumb and index finger, and you essentially curl your other fingers around the hook. So that's quite simple. This doesn't have to be particularly particular, just really do what feels comfortable. Now, for your other hand, we will be clutching the yarn. So, clutch the yarn with your bottom 2 fingers, nice and strong, nice and taut. We put our index finger under the yarn, so we're like this, and we under the yarn, and then we grab the rest, so the stitch and our yarn, this is called our tail end, this is the yarn that's left over, with our middle finger and thumb. And this is a formation. So how this works is our index finger acts as a bit of a lever, ensuring the yarn remains taut, and our middle finger and thumb are really holding our work into place so that it doesn't move around. Now, in order to start, we need to chain 4. So I'll be showing you how to make this form of granny square. This is a filled granny square. So we chain 4. Now to chain, we first must yarn over. To yarn over, we essentially swish this hand and whoosh it under the yarn. So this is a yarn over. So we just essentially do a movement that means that the yarn is on our hook. So swish and like that. Perfect. Now to chain, we bring this yarn through, and we bring it through our stitch. Oops, let me show that a bit more closely. So we whoosh it, we turn our hook, and then we put it in, and then through. And we need 4 of these. I'll do this a bit more closely. So we yarn over this whoosh movement. We pull this hand down, this hand with a hook. We pull it down, down, down. And while we do this, we want to angle our hook so that the hook can fit through our stitch. So we angle it down a bit, or whatever angle works, and we push it through. We pull it through. And then final one, we yarn over, bring our hand down, 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 and through. And we have 4 stitches. That's how many we need to start. Now we place a slip stitch into our first chain. And what this does is it connects it into a circle. So what we do is I like to hold my current stitch just to have more control. So I hold it, angle it, and pop it into this first V, this first stitch. You can sometimes just use your nail to help it go through. So we are putting this through our first stitch. Our first stitch is our first V. This is how you distinguish a stitch. If you want to go into that a bit more depth, you can watch my beginner's video. So our first V is our first stitch. We put our yarn in. We yarn over, bring this through our first stitch, and then our next one. And this is our start. So we've got a ring shape. Okay, so now what we do is we chain 3. So just to note that the start of a granny square is very particular. You only have to do this once per granny square, okay? So we chain 3, so remember to chain, we whoosh, we bring our hook down and through. So we yarn over, whoosh, down and through, yarn over, down and through. And these are 3 stitches. You can see 1, 2, 3 stitches. And now what we'll do is we have to do what is called a double crochet into our hole. So we can see here we have got a hole, and we're not talking about this hole here. This we ignore. It's not this. I spent so long struggling with granny squares because I kept putting it in here. It's this hole. There's a hole in the center. This hole right here is what we're referring to. Right here. This hole here. Okay. So what we do is to do a half double crochet, which is actually the only stitch really we'll be doing, and for our granny square, is we yarn over. Okay, so we've yarned over. We go into this stitch. So you yarn over and you angle your wrist so that you're able to put the stitch into the hole. Okay, so now we've got something looking like this. There's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, so now what we will do is we yarn over again, and we go through just this first, it's not really a stitch, it's 2 stitches. We yarn over and go through these 2. Don't worry, I will explain this all again if something has not been clear. Okay, so now we've got 3 loops on our hook, and for our double crochet, what we do is we yarn over, and then we go through our first 2 stitches. So 1, 2. We have 2 loops left on our hook, and we do the same thing. Yarn over and through them both. If that's too difficult, or sometimes it can honestly be really difficult to put it through both at the same time. So you can just do one, for example, and then straight away the other one. So this is what we've got. We had our chain 3 and our double crochet. Now we can see this is essentially the same height, the chain 3 and the double crochet. And this is because this chain 3 will represent one double crochet. So in order to start a double crochet, you must always chain 3 to account for the height, and this counts as already a double crochet. Okay, so we need to do another one. So we yarn over. We angle our hook and put this into this hole in the middle. We are now at this stage, we have this sort of thing going on, like this almost mess here, and then 2 loops. We yarn over and go through this kind of cluster here. Now we yarn over again in front of the first 2, yarn over again, we go through the second 2. So we have 3 double crochets into this hole, and that is how many you do at a time for the first. So how it works is we can see our other piece. We can see it from the back because the flower's covering it at the front. But we can see that here we've worked in 3s, haven't we? So we've got 1, 2, 3 double crochets, and then 1, 2, 3. Now you may be thinking, hey, we just did 2 double crochets. Well, our chain 3, like here, counted as 1. So this would be a chain 3, and this is 1 double and another double crochet. So altogether this does count as 3. The chain 3 does count as a double crochet. So we work in 3s essentially for the first round. So we are working in 3s, and between each 3 double crochets we chain 2. So the swoosh motion, put it through, and the swoosh motion and put it through. Now these chain 2s act as the gaps. So if we see here again, these gaps are created by chain 2s, and this is what gives it its nice granny square look. It's got the chain 2s and the gaps. So now what we do is we do the exact same. We're going to do 3 double crochets in here. Now we're not going to chain 3 and put it in. This is the gap, and these are our stitches. So we need 3 new double crochets. So again, to be honest, the hole can get a bit crowded, but still put it in the same place. You yarn over, put it in, yarn over again through that first cluster, yarn over again through the first 2, yarn over again through the final one. Now we've got a cluster of 3. Now, like before, we must chain 2. So 1 chain, 2 chains. And we continue this 2 more times. So each of these is one of the sides of the square. So that's 1, that's 2, and we do this 2 more times. So I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so we have 4 clusters of 3 double crochets. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. For the end, we will chain 2 like always. Remember, we still have to form that corner. So that's 1, that's 2. And then we do a slip stitch like we did before. So remember, we did a slip stitch when joining our chain to create a circle. So now what we do is we want to find the top stitch of this chain 3. So we've got 1 chain here, 2, and 3. So we put our hook into this stitch, the front loop. Alright, so we really just want to shove it in there, and also the back loop. So front, and then back loop, which is just hiding. If this is too difficult, you can really just do front or back. So that's our back loop. Okay, so you see we've got the 2 loops here. We then yarn over like we did before, just once, and then we just bring this through. And that's our start. That's the start of our granny square. That is the start, and that is done. How a granny square works is we crochet in rounds. So a round is basically each time we go round. So we just did our first round, which would be this one. Now we will do this round. So let's do it. So we are going to start a new round, chain 3 like we did before. 1, 2, 3. And we want to place another double crochet into here. So we're no longer doing 3 in this corner. We will be doing just 2. This is to make sure that it's not too big. So we yarn over, place our hook into the hole, into our stitch. Well, this is actually just a gap. We yarn over again, bring this through this cluster, yarn over through the first 2 stitches, yarn over through the last. That is our corner. That's the start to our corner. Now with the filled granny square, we want to place a double crochet into every stitch. So let's do that. So first, how do we identify these stitches? Each stitch is a V shape, okay? So this is one V. That's a second V, and this is our third V. You can just also picture it as it's the top of each of these stitches. So we yarn over and we place this into our first V, which is here. So we yarn over and we're going to do a double crochet. So in, yarn over through the first cluster, yarn over and yarn over. We do this again into our second stitch. So we yarn over, we go through into here, through, out, yarn over, through, and one more time. Now this stitch, it could feel a bit different just because it's more on the side, but it's still the same thing. We still have this gap to go through. To note, you want to go through both loops. So you want both loops in on your hook, right? Because this is the complete stitch. Yarn over through the first, yarn over, and yarn over. Perfect, so this is what it's looking like so far. We've got the top. Now, in order to tackle this corner, the corners are made of 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 2 double crochets. So we yarn over, and into this big hole, we put a double crochet, and then another double crochet into that same hole. Now we chain 2, remember, like we did before, because this is a corner, so we chain 2. We yarn over, put this into the hole, yarn over, yarn over, yarn over. Say that probably too many times, but I hope you now are comfortable with a double crochet. We're doing it twice basically, so we're doing 2, chain 2, 2, so chain of 2s basically. And now we continue. I am now at the end of my round. We've gone around the whole thing, and now what we do is we place 2 more double crochets into this hole. So into this hole we've already placed 2. This is how we started, and now we need to place another 2 to finish it off. So here, how we go 2, 2, we need to do here. So we do 2 more double crochets, yarn over, in, yarn over through, yarn over through 2, and yarn over through 2. So that's 2. And then we essentially just chain 2 like always, and we do the slip stitch again into the third one. So 1, 2, 3, third stitch. I'm just going to go through, yeah, here we go. Go through the loops, go through the 2 loops, or just 1 loop, honestly, whatever works for you. Yarn over, bring it through, and then bring it through. So that is our second round, and we are going to continue doing this with the exact same formation for as long as we want. Depends how big you want your bag to be. So for me personally, I chose to have my bag to be of this size. Now this size is, I think it's quite a nice size, and this has 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds. So we are currently halfway through essentially, like we've done half the rounds. You can do bigger, you can do smaller. I would definitely say do bigger than this. I mean, really, honestly, it does depend what you want to fit, but continue for as many rounds as you want. And it's the exact same thing. So I have now done my 4 rounds, so I have gotten to the end of my square. What we do to finish off is we will cut our yarn a distance away, and then we simply, as if we were about to chain, pull the yarn through and tighten. And this is our square all done, which is perfect. Now what we're going to do is our flower. So get your yarn of a different colour, and we're gonna, I cannot find the end, there we go, we found the end. So we have our yarn, and this will start just a bit differently. In my previous video I said that almost all the time you will need to start with a slip knot. This is when you wouldn't. We are starting with what is called a magic ring. So how to make a magic ring is exactly like the slip knot. So we have this over our fingers, the yarn. We curl these two, bring the yarn through and to the other side. So we've got the exact same setup as for our slip knot, but instead what we do is we get our hook. So with our hook, we go under the first yarn, through, and scoop this up essentially, okay? So we have scooped this up. We'll do that again. We have the yarn wrapped around our 2 fingers. We put our hook in under the first yarn and we scoop up the second. Okay. Now what we do is we remove our fingers and we chain 2. So this can be a bit difficult because you have to keep this nice and taut. You want to bring the hook and the loop down, but we just chain 2. 1 and 2. And now we've got a magic loop. So what this is basically just a loop where you can put in stitches, which is quite neat, very lovely. Now what we are going to do is place 9 single crochets into our loop. So a single crochet is a new stitch. So how this works is we go into our loop, so no yarn over. We then yarn over and pull this through, and we then yarn over and go through the 2 stitches we have, right? So we only do 1 yarn over. Again, we insert our hook, we yarn over, we bring this through, and then we yarn over through those 2 stitches, and we continue 7 more times because we've done 2. So we go in, we yarn over, bring this through, then bring it through again. We go in, yarn over, bring this through, yarn over, pull it through. Go in, come out, yarn over, bring this through, yarn over, bring this through. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches so far. So I have now done my 9 stitches. Now what we do is with this yarn, the tail end, so the one that's not connected to our ball of yarn, we pull this. And by pulling it, we really bring this magic circle nice and small, which is very lovely. And then what we do is we slip stitch into our top stitch. So just like we would do before for the filled granny square, we go in, yarn over, through, and then just through. And now we've got, look how, this is actually so cool. We've got this circle. Great. Okay, so now we need to do the petals. For the petals, we will be learning a new stitch called the half double crochet. So what we need to do is, how this will work is we put a petal into one stitch, and then the next one we do a slip stitch. Now this way we're able to bring the petal back to the original flower. So we want to start in our current stitch, which is this gap here. We are starting in this gap right here. Okay, right here we will be starting. So what we do is we want to yarn over, and we're going to do a half double crochet. So the start is exactly like a double. We yarn over and go into this hole, right? So this hole I spoke about, we yarn over, go into this hole. Now we've got this cluster, and like before, we yarn over and bring through this cluster. So we've got 3 hoops. Now, how a half double crochet differs is that we just simply yarn over and bring through all 3. There is no yarn over twice, there's just a yarn over once. Now we will do 2 double crochets. So each petal will be made of 4 stitches, that's 1 stitch. Now we do double crochet, so we've just done this many times, so it's the same thing. Yarn over the first 2, and then yarn over the final 2. And we do this one again. First 2, and then final 2. And then to finish, we do another half double crochet, so the first stitch we did. So this is set up the same as a double, but instead of going through 2 and then 2, you go through all 3. Now, the reason for these different stitches is they have different heights, so it really does give your petal a nice curved shape. Now what we do is we identify our next stitch, which is the next V, which is right here, and we insert a slip stitch. So here, and then a slip stitch, and that's 1 petal. Now we'll be able to make 5 of these. So let us do the next one, just to make sure we've got it. Now make sure you can keep this nice and tight, but you can really tighten it at the end. So we now go into our next stitch. We don't go into the same one. So we yarn over, we identify our next stitch, which is just here. So we go in, yarn over again, through, yarn over and through the next 2. And then we do our double crochet. You can see here, I didn't go through all the strands of yarn. Okay, there we go. We accidentally left a strand of yarn, so make sure to go through all of them and through. So that's 1 double crochet. Let's do our second double crochet. And then our final one. Our final stitch, which is the half double. So we go through all 3. And then we slip stitch into the next stitch. Through and there. And I'll meet you once we've gotten to the end. So we're going to do this 5 times. We've now done our 5 petals, and again we do a slip stitch. This stitch may be a bit harder to find, but it's still here. And we are done with our flower. This is actually a really lovely quick flower to do. And like before, we will cut our yarn. So we cut. And then we will put this through as so. Lovely, lovely, lovely stuff. Okay, so we have our 2 separate pieces, and now we must sew them together so that they are attached. Now, there are many different ways to sew things together, but I'll just be doing I'll be showing how I do it. So we have 2 threads left. Now, ideally we would have kept this quite long. And what I want to do first is use both of these threads to attach it here. We want it to be nice and secure. We will first use the yarn, the thread, that is attached to the center of this flower. So we're going to thread our needle. Because it is a tapestry needle, it's much easier to do so. I do not think you'll be able to do it with a normal sewing needle. This yarn definitely would not fit. So we have threaded our needle. And now what we do is just sew it on. So what I would do is probably just put the needle through our center hole. And we want to make sure it's nice and central. Okay, so here we go. So what I would recommend doing after going in is really just placing 1 stitch just to make sure we can ensure that the flower stays in the center. So I won't put this through the flower as well, just through the first layer. Okay, so this is our start. Lovely. And now what I want to do quite simply is really just get the stitches and pick them up with our needle. So I'll be doing the more central ones, so I will really pretty much just pick up a stitch like so. So we go in a stitch. Honestly, with sewing, it really is whichever way you want to do it. And you really want to just get a stitch and attach it to a stitch below. So we can go here, for example, get this stitch, right? Right, so what we can do is we can get like this stitch, for example, and then attach it to this stitch below. So we've put it through below and we just bring it through, right? And this is really, we want to just continue doing this all the way around. I would recommend doing it with this yarn, and also if you want, you can do it a bit with this yarn. So I'll get back to you once I've done around the whole flower. But really you are just getting a stitch from the flower, then a stitch from your piece, and bringing them together so that. So I finished, and we've got our threads left over, and it's very important that we weave these in. Weaving in tail ends will basically mean that if we put this in the washing machine, it will not come undone. So it is a very important step. So in order to do this, I will just go over the stitch that I just did in order to create a sort of knot. So you see this is a knot, the orange knot. And then I'll simply poke this through to the other side of a flower. So you see, we went in here, we came out here. So this has been woven in. This means that the yarn will basically have to unravel through the flower, then through that knot, in order for that yarn to come undone, which obviously is quite unlikely, which is nice. So now it's a nice, neat cut. And we just cut this off. Leave a little bit of space. Don't cut it right there, right at the seam, and then just give it a little wiggle out. Now, we will do this again with this one. So now this flower is nice and secure into our square. I have weaved in the ends for the flower in the center, and now I need to weave in the ends of the other of the square itself. Now you can do this at the end. I like to do it as I go along, just so I have less to weave in at the end. So this will pretty much be done in the same way. Weaving in is pretty much all the same. Now that I have my two squares, it's time to sew them together. Obviously, once you've made one, you'll go ahead and make the other. Feel free to skip back and watch the video again. Now, to sew them together, I'll be crocheting them together. So, put the squares right side facing. So you need the side that will be facing outwards, so the side with the flower facing inwards. And what we're going to do is get our hook and pop it into a stitch, right? We'll pop it into this stitch. And now what we do is we get our yarn and we create a slip knot. So remember, the slip knot was this sort of this hook. We go in, we grab the bottom yarn, we stretch it up, and then we grab that yarn again and bring it through. So with our slip knot, we pop this onto our hook, and now we bring this through this gap, okay? So what we're doing is we're creating a way to crochet these two together. Now we're going to go ahead and chain one, and now it's actually quite simple. All we'll be doing is crocheting each stitch together. So obviously, because these are the same size and have the same number of stitches, each stitch has a corresponding stitch. So if this is our first stitch, then it has a corresponding first stitch. So we go through all 4 of these loops. We put this, right, we yarn over, go through the cluster, and then we do a single crochet. Now, I don't like doing slip stitches because it gets really tight and taut, but a single crochet is nice and quite nice and not too tight. So we go again. So we go in the first stitch, or the next stitch, and then the next stitch of the one at the back, and we bring it through and do a single crochet. So we essentially have matched up these squares and are now crocheting them together. So it is actually quite simple. Make sure to catch every stitch so that there aren't any gaps, and that way it is nice and even. So you've got this one, yarn over, bring through, yarn over, through. And we continue that all the way around. So we go down, around, around, up. Now, don't forget, do not sew the top. This has to be open so that we can put things into our pouch. I will be back once I have gone all the way around. So now I have gone around 3 of the 4 sides. And so what we do is we will now cut our thread, pull this through as we did before to finish off. And now we can put this inside out and we can see our bag so far. Obviously it's not done yet. And this is our bag. It is honestly really, really cute. I really like it. And now what we'll be doing is we'll be putting the thread around about the top so we can bring it as a drawstring bag. So I'll be back with that. I will also, before the next recording, weave in these ends just so it's nice and ready to go. And just like before, we will make our slip knot. This is our slip knot. And we'll put this on this hook. We'll bring this through just like we did before. Chain up 1. And we're going to go ahead and do single crochets around the whole piece. Now, the reason we do this is really just to get a nice border. So we're going to just do single crochet. So that's 1 single, 2 single. So what we're doing is we go into the stitch, yarn over, through, and then yarn over, really just to get it a nice even finish as well, so that it's all kind of finished together. So as a reminder, now that we're at the end and we're going over this, like where the 2 squares join, we do 2 single crochets here, 1 in here, and then just 1 in the next, because we've already done 1 from when we started, and then we'll do a slip stitch. Lovely. So this is our work so far. Now we are going to do our double crochets. So this is really what's going to be able to put our thread through, our chain through, to be able to pull the drawstring bag together. So we're going to start by chaining 2, and throughout this whole row, we are going to skip a stitch. So here we'll skip this one. This current stitch does not count. We skip a stitch and go into the next one. So in, and we do our double crochet. So remember, yarn over, then yarn over again. We chain 1 and we do this again. So we yarn over, skip the next stitch, which would be this one, and then go into that next stitch. Again, chain 1. Yarn over, skip that stitch, go into the next one. Yarn over, through, yarn over, through. And then we chain 1, and we continue this all the way around, and I'll meet you when we just get here. Alright, so now we are at the end, and we'll again just chain 1, and then slip stitch into that top stitch. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, just do a slip stitch. Remember, you just yarn over and go through. And here we've got this almost netting look all the way around. Alright, perfect. Okay, so now that we have this grid looking thing, we are going to do our scallops on the top. And this is really going to give our work a very nice finish. So what we do is at the top of each post, so this is the post, we identify the stitch. In this case, this is this one. And we insert 5 half double crochets. So this involves a yarn over, yarn in, pull through, and then pull through all 3. So we do 5 of these, yarn over into our hole, yarn over through, yarn over through all 3. So then we'll do this, we've done this 3 times, so 2 more times. So now we have 4, and now we have 5. And then, so you see we've got this nice little curve shape. We will then slip stitch into the next post. So we slip stitch. So you see the next post is this one, the top of this post. The top of this post is just here. So we slip stitch. Perfect. And we do this again. We yarn over and go into the next post. And then we do 5 half double crochet, and then we slip stitch into the next stitch. And we continue this all the way around and on the other side as well. And then we'll sort out this chain that will go here. Okay, so now I need to chain a certain amount to put through our holes. So we start with our yarn. We did a chain at the beginning, remember? So we do a slip knot. Remember, you have the yarn in front of your fingers. You wrap it around. You pinch under, through, under, and then up. So this is our slip knot. Perfect. And now we're going to chain. So the amount you want to chain has to be enough to go there, around and back, and a bit longer. So I always say it's a bit good to do a bit extra just in case. So you're going to chain, which you remember is the whoosh motion and through a stitch. So whoosh, through a stitch, whoosh, through a stitch, and you do this for the length of going there and around. And you need to make 2 of these. So we make 2 of these. So now we have our chain. So let's put it in. We'll put it into the square that's right in the corner. And we will bring this through. So we want it to be facing outwards. As in the end of this to be out of the bag, not in the bag. Nice. And what we're doing is we're literally just bringing this through the next hole. And then it goes back in the next hole. So it's literally weaving in and out, in and out, in and out of these posts. So again, we'll just bring it through. And then we just bring it here. So going in, out, in, out, in, out. And this will go all the way around. So we bring that through. Bring this through. Lovely. And we just continue. It actually is quite fun. It is quite a fun process, I must admit. So we just bring it in, out, and we go around, and I'll meet you when we're on the other side. For the other side, we want to do the exact same thing. So here is our middle piece, our middle block, and we are going to pull the work in, right? So we just put the chain on the hook and pull it through. And then we do the exact same thing, quite literally. We just follow this through. And it will be the exact same, and by that I mean you will not be going over. Like the posts that you can still see white, they will remain white. You will not be going over with the chain over here. It follows the exact same route, the same trajectory, whatever you want to call it, as the other one, as the other chain. And we just do this around the whole thing, and we'll come around to the other side. Okay, so now this tightens. Perfect. This is how you make a drawstring. So this is your bag done, essentially. Now we have one thing to add, which are beads. Now this is completely optional, but I will leave the invitation open if we want. So to do this, you will need 4 beads. I've already used 1, so I only need 3 more. But you can see I just put a bead on the end, I think it looks nice and cute, and then it can really help secure and ensure the end does not get loose. So how do we do this? We will get our needle, our tapestry needle, and thread our yarn. So we threaded our yarn. We get one of our beads, and we will thread our needle through the bead until it comes to rest just above our chain. Then we go through like so, and then through like so again. And then after, we'll just go through and chain and weave this in, sorry. So essentially we would have gone over 3 times, but the last one we are weaving in so we don't go back into the bead. So I've just weaved in a little bit. And just make sure it stays nice and secure. You could do it 2 times, I think that'll be completely fine as well, but I'm just doing it free. And then, like always, we cut the end we've weaved. So this is done 3 times, and this one is done 2 times. So it really depends what kind of look you prefer.
So now you know how to make this really cute crochet drawstring bag. We hope you found the tutorial useful and that you've made one yourself. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure to stay tuned because we also have knitting tutorials, sewing tutorials and embroidery tutorials on top of the crochet. So we'll see you soon. Bye!